to have you all here. My name is Yuriko Doku. I'm the OLLAS Assistant Director and also the Community Engagement Committee Chair for the UNO Staff Advisory Council. Before moving forward, I just want to remind you after the presentation, we will have the Q&A session. So please use the chat feature for your questions and or comments. This event has been co-sponsored by the UNO Staff Advisory Council. Our moderator for tonight's event is Omar Correa, our UNO's Associate Vice Chancellor of Enrollment Management and also OLLAS faculty member. Omar teaches one of our LLS special topics course, Intro to Afro-Latino Culture. Omar will introduce our guest speaker, Mrs. Candice Castillo. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuriko, and welcome everybody. It is my pleasure to welcome Candice Castillo to UNO. Candice Castillo currently serves as Houston's ISD Executive Director of Equity and Outreach for Houston ISD. Candice is responsible for a district-wide oversight of wraparound services, family engagement strategies, student mentoring programs, parent center, and other special projects. Candice was born and raised in Panama City, Panama, and has called Houston, Texas, home since 2005. She has a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's degree in global management. She is currently pursuing her doctorate in education degree in ethical leadership at the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas. Her extensive experience engaging multicultural and cross-functional audiences and developing bilingual communication in various settings has fueled her passion for empowering communities and families to help their children succeed in school and in life, which she also does through active volunteerism in her community. Candice served 3 years as president of the Houston chapter board of the Association of Hispanic Professional, Prospanica, a national organization focused on empowering and advocating for the pursuit of higher education and advancement of Hispanic leadership. Candice was the 5th female president of Prospanica Houston and the first Afro-Latina to lead the chapter. During her first term as president, she led the chapter to achieve national recognition of Chapter of the Year in 2018, an honor earned by the top performing chapter of the 48 chapters that are part of the organization. She was also recognized with the Excellence in Leadership Award for demonstrating exemplary leadership through collaborating in helping her chapter reach its goal and led Prospanica Houston in earning the award. We are extremely happy to welcome you tonight to UNO, Candice.
Hello, good evening, buenas noches. Thank you so much, Omar, for the introduction. And I'm very thankful to be here with all of you today. I want to start by saying thank you so much for being so understanding about rescheduling this event from last week. As you know, we were going through a winter storm that was unprecedented for us. And so I really appreciate your understanding and that you could be anywhere today. You chose to be here. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today. And to OLLAS, thank you so much for having me today and talking a little bit about my experience on encouraging students of colors and how they can help them succeed in higher education. So before we start getting deep into this topic, I want to share a little bit about myself. Some of it you already heard on the intro that Omar shared with you, but I'm originally from Panama, born and raised there, very proud of my heritage. And if you don't know where Panama is this little piece of land right here between, in Central America, but between South America and uniting the rest of North America to it. And so I have been living here in Houston, going almost in 16 years when I immigrated to the United States. I came through California, so I lived in San Diego for a couple of years as well, and still consider it part of my home too. So love it there too. One thing that Omar also mentioned on the bio, and something that I'm very passionate about, is volunteering in the community. I think that's one of the best ways, not only to give back, to everybody that we're surrounded by, but also connecting with others and learning about the environment that you operate in. So I do that through different venues, Prospanica being one of them. If you're not familiar with Prospanica, I do encourage you to check them out. It's one of the largest Hispanic professional organizations. It has been in existence for over 30 years, and it has a lot of great opportunities for professional development and networking. So definitely check it out. Another thing that I like to do in my time volunteering is use my language skills to help my community. So I do a lot of translation and interpretation services. You can see some of those pictures there with the microphone. I do that in my local church. I also love traveling. Can't wait for that to be possible safely again. And so that's one thing that I also enjoy when I do have the time. And I have been part of, diversity and just different cultures, I think, from a very, very early age. In my country, my home country, you really see a mix of races and ethnicities. You can very well see a nation person, a Jewish person, in the same square per se. And so it's something great to have grown up with. And I think it allowed me to have that interest in learning from others. And so that diversity is also visible in my family. As many of you know, will be familiar with Hispanic cultures. We come in all different shades and colors. So that diversity, has been part of my interaction since I have memory. So that's a little bit about my personal part. And as far as my professional journey, I have been part of various different industries. When I first pursue my bachelor's degree, I was looking forward to being in business administration and just be part of, the corporate world. Business was something that was very interesting to me. And I just figured that, pursuing a bachelor's degree in that area will allow me to pursue any kind of industry that I wanted to. And so as many of our students, right, you start with an idea. Actually, when I first started my college journey, I wanted to do banking and finance, but I early on kind of figured out that if I wanted to be in an environment that was going to be super successful for that, I probably would have to move to other bigger banking cities. And so I put that aside and decided to settle for business administration. And that gave me kind of an opportunity to also be very curious about, at that time, everybody kept talking about like global competition and global development, and everything was about global. And I had the opportunity when I started as an admin assistant in an international company to explore what that looks like, right? When you have not just a multinational type of company, but really you're part of a team that have presence in different parts of the globe. That became very interesting to me and allowed me to kind of narrow my focus when I was doing my MBA to do that in global management. And so from there, I had the honor to be part of a global financial institution that is very well known, and was able to not only continue developing my, let's say, administrative side of things, but also got an opportunity to work on corporate communications, and again, being part of a global team and developing projects that would go through different audiences in different countries. So that was something that I treasure a lot, and that opened the door for me to even realize about developing skills that I didn't think early on my career. And one thing led to the other, and that communications role actually is what led me to working in education, where I'm currently at. And I came into Houston ISD, which is the largest school district in Texas, and is the 7th largest in the country, to work in communications. And from there, an opportunity presented to be part of family and community engagement, and that led to additional opportunities into where I'm currently working with equity and outreach. So a lot of times I like to say that I see my journey as honestly as a privilege, not only a mix of the skills that, you know, would come through an education, a college education, but also through the passions and the involvement that I have been part of in my community. So all of those different aspects have truly built up to create that opportunity that I'm pursuing right now. Every time that opportunity will come my way, it would have some sort of relation to those different things that I'm passionate and a believer of, and has opened the door to that. One thing that I like to also mention about this, because and especially for anyone that is currently pursuing their college education, and a lot of times you can be in a place where you have everything figured out and you know exactly where you want to go and you have it mapped out, or it could be that you really don't know. It's just, I just want to encourage you to work with the opportunities that you have right in front of you. And if you are set on something in particular, that opportunity would certainly help you take there. But if you're not sure, it's always a good way to also figure out other things. So whether you know what you want to do or you don't, I just want to encourage you to understand that your journey can take different avenues, but you should just stay, you know, faithful that you'll continue there and it will lead you to a place of success. So talking a little bit about my current role as Executive Director of Equity and Outreach, what that means. In Houston ISD, we have a little bit over 280 schools. As I said, it is the largest school district in the state and the 7th largest in the country. So overseeing different programming that allows our underserved population to be more empowered and to have a lens of equity in a system that sometimes it's definitely not equal for everyone. We want to ensure that when we're working with students and families, we are allowing them to understand how the education system works, how the choices that they make while they're in high school will lead to different choices, you know, in their post secondary journey. So we focused a lot of different programming on educating parents through different programming that we have through family engagement. We also have mentoring programs that are specifically focused on our students of color. We have 2 of them. One is specifically for young ladies and another one for young men. And we try to expose them to different opportunities, experiences, allowing them to understand what building life skills look like, and also to see people that look like them reflected on those opportunities. So when someone is talking about their journey or their success or where they are at, it's not something that looks like a pie in the sky theory for them, but it's something that they can relate, that are people that came from places just like the ones that they're part of, communities that they're part of. So that's something very crucial in our mentoring program for us. Another part that it has been very empowering in this journey is ensuring that we're not just focusing on the academic aspect of education. While yes, that is key and very important, we also understand that having a holistic approach to education goes beyond those academic supports. And so we have a program that is deployed through 215 specialists, and we call those Wraparound, which is where we focused on understanding the non-academic needs of our students and families and ensuring that they're not being distracted by those situations that are out of their control, and that we can address some of those needs so that they can focus on academics and be successful. So that's kind of a little bit where I can share my experience on how we are tackling the success of our students of colors, how we are ensuring that when they leave Houston ISD, they are ready for whichever journey, whether that is higher education or that is the workforce or the military. Whatever they decide to do is ensuring that we have that holistic approach to help them by mentoring them, educating families, and addressing those non-academic needs as well. And so when we talk about students of colors, right, a lot of times everybody will have a slightly different definition of who or what goes into that. And so when we look at that, right, we talk about identity. And I would say that identity sometimes can be a very complex concept to define, because we could have identifiers that are based on social or cultural construct, right, race construct. And so when we're looking at that, we have to be very careful to understand that we're not just identifying someone or based on our own list of, this is what this profile or this person or this group looks like, but that we're truly valuing and embracing someone's unique identity. And so one thing I can share is that before moving to this country, right, I only had a handful of identifiers to worry about, right? Like my gender or my family link or my race were only a few. But then I moved into this great country, and I remember the first time that I was filling some sort of kind of form, and then it's asking me, if I consider myself Hispanic or Latino, or if I'm Black, or if I'm this. And as you think through those identifiers, you start questioning a little bit about, like, okay, which label or box did I fit in, right? And so as I reflect on that experience, I think it is so important that we, as as a person, are able to embrace our identity, even if that might not fit someone's box or list or whatever kind of classifier they may have. So sometimes when I'm looking at this, right, for some people, they might just see like, oh, here's a female, Black person, or they might hear me speak, or they might know me and, oh, this here is a female Hispanic person, and that's just like part of the list, right? It goes by the gender or the race or my ethnicity. I personally do identify myself as an Afro-Latina, and sometimes people ask me, what does that mean, right? Well, I'm a Black Latina, right? And for me, I don't choose one over the other. I'm not more Black than Latina, and I'm not more Latina than Black. I'm both. And I embrace both, and I'm very proud of that. And so I do understand that for some people, that might not be an easy concept to understand at first sight. So sometimes it's a little education that has to go into that. But, I typically do share that experience. And one of the reasons is not just for my sake or because I want people to understand how I identified, but it's because, especially if you're in the field of education, you're going to come across a lot of different scenarios. And so I think it is important that we understand, value, and respect how people identified, and that we're not automatically just boxing people in what we see. When I first came to the US, I remember getting those questions about, like, what are you? Or, why do you speak Spanish if you're Black? And I had never been in a setting where somebody will question why I would speak Spanish, right? So that was very new to me. And at the beginning, I wasn't even sure if I had a logical explanation, because it was logical for me, but it might not have been logical for the person that was asking. And, that led me to very interesting encounters. Sometimes I would be at a supermarket, line, and I will hear somebody talking about my hair or how I was dressed in Spanish. and they didn't expect me to, respond to them or say like, turn around and say, oh, gracias, because they were giving me a compliment, or, ask them if they had a question about something that they were discussing about me. And at the same time, sometimes I would be in a place and I would see someone that had a language barrier, and they were trying to get assistance and they couldn't, and my, me being there and stepping in and helping them kind of translate, help navigate that experience. So I know that everybody's experience will be different, but again, I'm sharing it from a place of explaining why I think identity is, one, it's a little bit complex, but two, it is important that we value, that we learn about people's identity, and that we are able to embrace them. Not only us, to them, but also people in our different community of colors to learn to embrace their identity, however you identify yourself. I think that's going to be something that helps you in life, that helps you to build your person and your confidence. So regardless of any list, again, of identifiers, I think one great takeaway of this is understanding that in the Latino community, there are different different shades, different shapes as in any other culture, but that not everybody has the same look. We all speak different, we all speak Spanish with different accents, that is a given. And so sometimes people do recognize that, or sometimes they don't. But there are plenty of different countries that, Spanish is their first language. So I want to encourage anyone that is a faculty, an educator, or just someone in the community, when you come across those cases, to also use it as an opportunity of learning, right? To educate yourself if you're not familiar with the country that the person might be at, but don't treat it as a novelty or making the person feel like it's something so weird, right? If you see a person of color, or even if you were seeing maybe like a redhead person that's speaking Spanish just because it doesn't fit, what we typically know or what we are accustomed to see, making your students feel that they are included, that they're, that you're being open to who they are, is such a key factor to build relationship with your students. And that's very important as we navigate not only college, but just life in general. Building those connections become very important. So just really embrace the uniqueness that every person that doesn't look like you bring to the table. I think that it's important. It's a sign of respect. So again, just building on that inclusivity, especially when we are interacting with our students of color. And so in that aspect, I just want to give you a reflective question, right? So when you see someone, and I can use me right now, do you see me, or are you perceiving me? Are you seeing me, seeing the potential on that student, on that person, the value that they can bring? Or are you perceiving them and then making conclusions out of a deficit mindset, right? So as you see interact a person of color, are you pushing your students towards success, or are you pulling them away from success? Why did I say this? It's because in the surface, right, we can pretty much just see the color, the gender, sometimes could be the age, sometimes could be, right away, maybe the nationality or the ethnicity, or, based on maybe the way they're dressed. We're already making in our own list kind of like, oh, this person, is well off economically, or they're economically disadvantaged. But are we taking the time to look a little bit deeper? As I mentioned before, making those relationships and those connections with your students are very important. And part of that becomes, right, that you're getting to know them as not just another student in your class, but also as an individual that's going to be a contributor to the community that you are part of. So again, I want to use this question for you to reflect on the fact of when you're having those interactions, what your perception is going to be. Are you going to really see that potential and work towards helping that potential to become its fullest so that that student, that person can be successful in the environment that they are at? Or are you going to become one of those people that, you know, have your own type of bias and perception and automatically going to box the student or the person and limiting their ability to succeed? Another thing to consider, and I talked a little bit about, this is part of the work that I'm doing right now, but I think another part to consider in your interactions with the students of colors is in this educational environment is what success looks like, right? And a lot of times for, you know, many of us, that success, it is about academics, it is about, you know, getting into the good classes, and it is about um, having a great GPA or ensuring that I'm getting to that connection. But do we do that in a way that we are creating that opportunity or providing the additional resources that a student may need to be able to have access to that success? So a lot of you might be familiar with what integrated services are. In some communities, they're known as wraparound or community schools. So basically is looking at that holistic approach of supporting disadvantaged communities, and in this case communities of color. It's not just enough with the push that we have been doing in, you know, the past decades about getting more students of colors to college. And while I am definitely pro that, and I think that's important, and I think it's great, and I think we need to continue that, it's not enough getting them into college. And I'm sure that many of you will agree with that. It's not just having them enroll into college, is retaining them and ensuring that they're going to be successful and graduate. But we have to be honest and think about how is that going to be possible when our students of color have been part of a system that has not been designed for them to succeed. So that's where I think as an educational institution, as a community, as corporations, we have to take a step back and see how can we allow ourselves to be part of the solution, right? And this approach of integrated services is a great way to start. Another fact is that we can have people, students especially, that are dealing with certain situations, right? If they have food insecurity, if they need mental health assistance, if they need, you know, a lot of our Latino populations do deal with that immigration fear if they don't have the proper documentation. So ensuring that you're building a community where your students can have access to resources that help them navigate that is going to ensure that they're successful, because we can set expectations for someone to be focusing on school or even work if they have all these other situations and they don't have the avenues to go and seek that help. And it is to the benefit, I would say, of the institution to have that as part of their community. Not only will help with student retention, but allowing that student community has those resources right there and there. They don't have to go and seek it elsewhere. And again, kind of taken away from that academic interaction. So I would encourage, if you're, you know, if you don't have something built into that or you're not aware of, one, if you're part of the organization, that you take inventory of what kind of supports you have for students, right? That can help on retention, but also that can help with build that engagement that it's around non-academic needs and not just geared towards the academic needs. When we have both and we have them structured the right way, the outcome is going to be a success, because now not only do you have great faculty and great classes and great teaching and learning experiences, but you also have that community factor that a lot of our younger generations do seek, and that's the value that they see on being part of something. um, so I I want to just kind of take a pause here and make a little caveat, because I know a lot of times people think about this type of non-academic supports to be part of just kind of like the K through 12 education. But again, I will argue that as higher education institutions look at not only enrolling students, but how to retain them, having an approach of this caliber will definitely help with that success outcome of retaining and graduating successfully our students of color. So what are some ways that you can start, right? Because we know that sometimes we cannot just come and build a full plan of something specific, but there are some steps that we can take. And perhaps you are already having some of this, but it's just ensuring that you are building it in a way that is connected, one, and the two, that is truly having an immediate impact. So I would say be intentional about building a network, and not just a network to say like, oh, I went to an event and I met this one person, but even before you get to the event. So if you're a faculty, or if you're a community member, is understanding that if you're taking students to an event that is meant to be networking, do they understand what networking is? Do they understand how you do networking? So making sure that you don't make assumptions that people would just know that you go to an event and how to network is crucial. This is where campus organizations and even any other type of professional organization can become very valuable on doing this type of events and practices. Because the reality is that even, you know, beyond college, you're going to be networking. Networking is a very big part of professional life. So I do want to encourage students that if you're not doing that, take advantage of when those are taking place. And when you do engage in networking, it's not just say like, oh, here's my business card and that's it. A lot of people use LinkedIn nowadays as a great way to network. Ensure that you're not just like adding people and not even saying, introducing yourself, or maybe perhaps you can say, oh, I would like to add you because X, Y, and Z. I would like to add you because I noticed that you go to the same college, or I noticed that you're in this field and I'm interested in, you know. Ensure that you're given a reason, right? That you're being intentional about it, that it's not just a random ad to your network. Because at the end of the day, that network just serves the purpose. So at some point, you want to reach out to someone for something. So you want to be a little bit intentional on how you do that. Then we have mentoring. That's intentional guidance. We need to have and be more open to ensuring that those mentoring opportunities are happening. And this is, I would say, across the board. It's not just with our students, but also, you know, between faculty, like learn from each other. Ensure that you are sharing your knowledge. Don't be one of those people that you're just keeping everything that you know to yourself. So include your students in some sort of programming, even if it's informal, that they're able to be connected with someone that can help them down the road. Maybe you identified a student that is really good at some sort of skill or class, and you think of like, oh, you should talk to this person, right? So you can explore on a specific path or an industry. So I think it's very valuable for us to always keep an eye. And mentoring can happen in many different levels. It doesn't always have to be like, I'm your mentor, you're my mentee. But being that intentional guide to students are very important to help them navigate where they currently are, but also where they're going to go. And to students, I do want to encourage you that if you are interested in learning from someone, ask. That's a great way to also find a mentor, right? Mentors are not always going to come to you. So if you're interested, reach out to someone. If it's a professor or, somebody in a company that you're interested on, say like, hey, I would like to chat, have coffee with you to learn about X, Y, and Z. And you can have those mentoring moments. It doesn't have to be a lifelong commitment. But if you do ask, please commit and respect the time that somebody is giving you. That's very important as well. And the other part that I want to encourage everyone is understanding the role that you have. I think that's crucial in serving our communities of colors. There are different ways that you can be part of this work, right? Whether you are that person of color or you are sitting in a place of privilege that can help other groups, I think you need to realize what role you can play. So sometimes you can be an ally, and that is amazing. Recognizing that you can use that position of privilege to help others that do not have access to your same privilege. And how to do this sometimes can be a little bit different, right? Reflecting of what do I have right now that maybe I know somebody else had. It sometimes can be something as easy as like, I have access to go to this event. I have access to this type of people, and this person is not here. So I am gonna go ahead and use that to extend that privilege to others while I have it. Now, being an advocate is also great, and you can be both. You can be an ally, you can be an advocate, and that is when you are talking about these groups, right? Or these opportunities that are not available for everyone, or that are not, that we don't have enough students of colors being part of, is be that voice, bring it up, put a light into it, because you might be sitting in spaces where nobody else is thinking about it, right? So be that voice for our students. Make sure that you are able to educate others, that you're able to promote what's going on, that if there's an event, that you are being inclusive of all the people that can be at the table. We talked about being that mentor, being, an advisor, that guiding force. So that's also a very key role that you can play, but also being a sponsor, promote and celebrate and the work that, students of colors are doing in spaces that typically nobody else will be talking about them. That is very crucial. Use that privilege and that influence to build their reputation. If that you have a great student, again, greatness can be defined in different areas, but there's something that you're seeing as a student, be that voice to promote that great work that they're doing. If it's a coworker, if it's, somebody in another space that you're not, be that voice for them to promote the work that they're doing. And so I do believe that the success of our students of colors goes beyond anyone saying that they believe in equity, right? Equity is kind of becoming a buzzword right now, but I think that if we are serious about equity, if we are being serious about being inclusive and being diverse in the spaces that we operate, we have to recognize that we have to act on it and not just say that we are doing that, right? We have to be open to creating those opportunities for populations that have not have that access, that privilege, that same path. Because at the end of the day, one of the most powerful tools that we have for true change and true opportunity of success is education. And education goes beyond academics again, right? We need to ensure that we are building a system that is not the one that our students are already in, that is failing them. So to educate them successfully, to help them navigate that system that has gone against them, is going to require some extra steps. And that's what equity is about. It's not just saying like, okay, well, everybody just got into college and you all have the same access to the professor. It is recognizing that some of our students do not have that same access, do not have that same journey. I'll speak for myself as well. I was a first generation college student. And so while I would say that my parents were very helpful, there were things that I would go through that I know they would not understand because they had not been down that road yet. So taking that step to educating your families. Families are part of these communities. And even though we like to think that in higher education, right, we're dealing with adults and they still are part of someone's family. So I think when you make inclusive spaces for families to learn about your institution, that's very key and helpful in having that extra support for our students, and educating those that have lived in privilege, what does that look like and how they can be helpful to this work, and committing to serve in a way where we can generally say that we have given everything that we have to help our students navigate college, life, society, and give back to our communities. So another thing that we can do in ensuring that our students are going to be successful is helping them as well, right? Identify the time where they are in. Sometimes, you know, the way that we connect today is not the same way that we were connecting 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So having that understanding back to our students as well, right? Be intentional about what you are doing and how that's going to reflect on where you want to go. But you cannot just be doing things casually, and that goes on both ends, right? As an institution, I think it's important to be intentionally about how you want to support students, but our students also have to be intentional about taking those opportunities, honoring commitments. I think that is key. Again, a lot of times we like to put words that sounds great on paper, but are we committed to take action on that? So ensure that whenever you are making those decisions, that you're being intentional and honoring your commitments. Practicing self-care. I think right now that is so important. Our students are going through a lot. All of us are going through a lot, right? We're navigating a pandemic that no one before in this lifetime has gone through. And there's a lot of things that we have had to adapt and change in our lifestyle. So making sure that we normalize what self-care is and normalize asking for help, that's very crucial. We need to be able to have a safe space where we can do that. The other thing is to speak up. Another thing we need to normalize, as I said, is asking for help. A lot of times there are resources available. We need to do a better job at communicating and making them accessible, but also to anybody that needs those resources, they need to be able to understand that if you're not communicating, if you're not letting someone know, like, I'm going through something, it's going to be really hard for you to overcome it. So do speak up and use that opportunity to allow yourself to get some help when needed. Be flexible in your approach. I kind of share a little bit that with my journey. Again, you might have entered college with a plan, and if you're one of those people that you had a plan, you stick to it, and you're doing it the way that you envision it, that's great. But if you don't beat yourself over it. Again, there can be different roads to the same destination. So ensure that you're leveraging opportunities that come your way, that you are able to, even if somebody's offering you an opportunity that might not be something that you thought of it before, that you can find that connection on how it's gonna contribute to your journey. And the other part of that is practice gratitude. Let's be thankful for those opportunities that we have, for the space that we are in, for the privilege. Even if my privilege doesn't look like yours, all of us have some level of privilege that we have, whether it's having the privilege to go to a college or having a privilege to be of a group. Not all of the privilege that we talk about is necessarily financial, but being able to find that space to be grateful for what we have, and in return, share that with our community. I think the best sign of gratitude is that when we are able to go and invest that, turn around and invest that in others. And so I kind of want to close with just three quotes from three people that definitely admire a lot: Kobe Bryant, Sonia Sotomayor, and Cesar Chavez, because not only have they been great representations of our community, of what advocating looks like, of what hard work looks like. And so to all of our students, I want to just remind you that where you are, there's a purpose, and yes, you're gonna be able to succeed. Whether again your road is going perfectly how you plan it, or is taking some interesting twists and turns, know that you have what is needed. And to all of our educators and our communities and corporate stakeholders, I would say make sure that you're being active on participating on the educational communities of where you are, because at the end of the day, we are educating tomorrow's workforce, tomorrow's leaders, tomorrow's politicians. And so let's ensure that you are making time to be part of that community, that you are interconnected. So whether you are a student, a staff, a parent, you need to be actively involved in this educational process. Know when to ask for help, and know when to offer opportunities as well. The success of our students will be the success of our community and our society. It is in our best interest to ensure that our students of colors are successful, are being built for success. Knowing that perseverance, commitment, grit, bloom are great and are important, but we also need to have fair opportunities for them to be able to bloom where they're planted, to be able to reround when needed, to understand that we are the village that are supporting theirs. And so from your village, don't forget that you're receiving those opportunities and that privilege to come back and invest in your village as well. So don't stop, keep going. You're going to have a great time. But however you decide to live your journey, just know that you need to keep going. So I want to thank again all of you for being here. I hope that what I have shared has been helpful in any way. And thank you, Ollas, for the invitation. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Candice, for this great presentation, and Charla, and how our behavior and our actions can help the success of our students. So as a reminder, and you just did it, we want to encourage our participants, our audience today, that if you have any questions, to please include in the chat feature. And I have actually, there's one question already, Candice, that I would like for you to address. You spoke a little bit about the networking and the community in general, but we're wondering, while you work with families in some of your programs, what are some of the challenges that either the parents and the families encounter, and some of the ones that you encounter as you work with families in order to help students be successful? Because regardless if it is in K through 12 or for our students in higher education, the family is a very important factor in that success.
Yes, most definitely. That's a great question. And so I do think that a lot of times we have to understand that times have changed, right? And we get influx of people from different walks of life and from different parts of the world. So taking the time to share with our families what this process looked like, right? So when we, and I'm going to use my Latino families, when sometimes we talk about college, well, college here is way different to what college look in most parts of Latin America. The process itself is very different. The way that it gets financed is very different. Sometimes understanding that when you say like, oh, you have been accepted, that doesn't, you might have been accepted to a college, but that doesn't mean that you got accepted to maybe like the school that you wanted to go within that college. So what financial aid is, that's a big one that I do find with our families. So I think that in a way where we can allow our families to, even though, like I said, sometimes we want to think we are having adults only, family is still a very strong part of that. So I think having the ability to make a space for them so that they can be that extra support and that extra voice will be crucial. And a lot of times also giving families that peace of mind of how they can access the help, right, for their students, how they can also be part of being an advocate for our students. I know that we raised our kids to be their own advocates, but there are times that if they're not, let's say if they're not able to do that advocacy for something that is important, allowing someone to be that voice for them is still very important, even at the college level. So I would say don't forget about them, just be inclusive and try to make it simple for them to understand.
Excellent. Thank you. Here's another question that just came into the chat, and I'm going to try to read through this. I have a hard time seeing it, but here we go. There's a lot of push to encourage students to be full-time, which makes sense knowing that increases students' likelihood of finishing. However, some of our students, especially from underrepresented backgrounds, really struggle with life, family, financial, social pressures. And trying to encourage them to stay full-time can feel like denying their experience. What's your advice for balancing trying to keep them engaged without being insensitive, excuse me, being insensitive to their need? Or do you have advice for helping students who are part-time to persist?
Wow, that's a great question. And I'm going to start by saying that I actually I think I had been part-time student most of my life. So I can definitely relate to that. But I would say that my one advice is to communicate. Communicate with your professors. I do remember, especially, there was a part of um, when I was doing my undergrad that I was working full time, but I was also traveling with my work. And I know that some professors can be very like, you can only miss this many classes, right, during a semester. So I took the time, to talk to my professor, to share like what my life was being like at that moment. And I committed to ensure that my work was going to be done on time, but I also wanted for him to allow me to have a certain flexibility of, if I'm not going to be here, as long as I have my, kind of like an agreement, right? As long as I have my work, I don't want to be penalized if I'm not able to make it, because I cannot make a decision of dropping my job, which is helping me pay for college, or dropping college, right? Because that's an investment that I'm making. So to the schools and the professors, I would say, do work with your students, because that's a reality for many of our students. And having somebody choose between school and, their job wouldn't be a fair decision to anyone. And so I think communication is key. And I would say, Vanessa, keep pushing. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's worth it. And you're having an opportunity of getting that theory and that learning, but at the same time, that practice. So again, it's not an easy way, but communicating and ensuring that you can try to find that balance is going to just help you continue down the road and succeed at it.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa, for that question. And we have one more question here in the chat. As a student, how can, and this is from Carla, as a student, how can I help other students to begin their way into higher education?
That's a great question, Carla. Be a mentor to them. Be a promoter for them. Be an advocate. Share your experience. I think there is so much value when we have our college students come and talk to our high schoolers, our middle schoolers, and sometimes even our elementary schools, right? Because they see that person as like, I'm not that far away from where that person is, and sharing your experience is so valuable. I would say, look in your community on ways to be that type of mentor to college students, to offer to come and talk to them. Sometimes even, I know right now, in-person interactions are very limited, but if you get an opportunity to do a virtual tour of your college, that will be great. And if you're truly interested and you don't find a space over there, which I will really doubt it, I'm sure there's a lot of schools that will welcome. I'll be happy to have a Zoom session with you, and you can come and talk to our students in our mentoring programs. I'm sure they'll be delighted to hear from college students.
Excellent. I think that we're right about time. So, Candice, we want to truly thank you for your time today and for this exciting and very timely and perennial conversation about our students' success and how can we be part of that success. So thank you.
No, thank you. Gracias a ustedes por tenerme aquí esta noche. Again, I really want to thank everyone for being here, and hopefully these have been some helpful tips that I'm happy to have been here and share my experiences with you. So wishing you all the best in your journeys.
Thank you so much, Candice, on behalf of OLLAS. Thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Omar. This conversation has been recorded and we will be posted on our OLLAS YouTube page and also on our social media. And we just want also to invite everyone to join us for our upcoming OLLAS Charla on March 9th at 6 p.m. about accomplishments and challenges of women in the workplace. So thank you so much to everyone and have a good evening.